Welcome to the Black Doctors Talk podcast. I am your host, Dr. Christopher Holmes, and member of the Black Doctoral Network. Well, today we have a bright, intelligent brother who is going to share with us his experiences in the sciences. Who am I talking about? My guest today is Dr. Franklin DuBose. He is a scientist, educator, analyst, and certified project management professional in the nuclear industry. Yeah, you heard me. I said nuclear industry. Welcome, Dr. DuBose.
Thank you very much, Dr. Holmes. It's a pleasure to be here. You have given me quite the intro. That's what I have to live up to, brother. So I gotta see what I can do.
I don't tell lies here. I just tell facts. I'm just giving the people the information. This is who you are. And I know that you're going to share with them some very, very valuable tools. You're going to be informative, but we're going to learn more about who you are and how did you get to where you currently are in your career. So let's start with the very first question. We're going to go back.
Right.
So tell us, where does it all begin for you?
I actually am from Atlanta, Georgia, and I live in the Atlanta, Georgia area. So in a world of transplants, and Dr. Holmes, I know you're close. You're from an area relatively close, but in a world of transplants.
Yeah.
Yeah, Columbus counts, but in a world of transplants, I'm one of the few natives that you probably will encounter in the area. And I actually come from a beginning that did not point towards math and science at all. I come from a space that, well, one might call very humble beginnings. And if you were to look at all the other people I grew up with, you won't find anybody who does anything even remotely like what I do.
Wow.
Growing up in that area, I actually did have some opportunities because I had an aptitude. I know that a lot of people ask me how I got into math, how I got into science and physics and all that. Really, it's because I was good at it. And being good at it actually helped me get past some of the things that I was not so good at, like staying out of fights in school. But that's another story. We'll talk about that at another time.
I love that. And it was so you realized that you were just naturally gifted in those two areas.
So I don't know if I realized it. Actually, I think a lot of people around me realized it, and that was a good thing. So around second or third grade, my school had this program called Discovery. Mm-hmm. And they would take me out of my class and I would sit amongst a bunch of other students and do advanced stuff. Now, the thing that was interesting was I was the only second grader in there. So there were a bunch of third, fourth, fifth graders. And I was exposed to science, math, logic, things that I didn't see again until I was in college. These were not things that I just gravitated towards. Somebody saw it and I had some opportunities, and it just kind of went from there to magnet programs and advanced this and summer that. And I just kind of became a scientist in part because opportunities were there.
So when you graduated high school, or when you were approaching that senior year, had you already made up in your mind you wanted to go to college and major in something science or math related?
Now that's a question. That is an interesting question. I had kind of decided, but I think it was a retroactive decision I realized I kind of had made. My father actually was a high school valedictorian, and he was a chemistry major, not unlike, yourself. And he actually had a strong desire to go to Morehouse College, but his family wouldn't let him go because he was from a small town in Georgia. And they were just not going to let their baby go to the big city of Atlanta. But given his background, his aptitude, his story, that kind of influenced or inspired me to go in that direction. Yeah. Now, coming from the high school that I went to, which was Druid Hills High School, there were not a lot of people who looked like me at Druid Hills, relatively speaking. Mm-hmm. So I actually had to talk to my guidance counselor to get them to get a Morehouse recruiter to come to Druid Hills High School. And that recruiter, that kind of set the stage. And I was able to have a conversation, talk about my story. And in the process, I got a full academic scholarship before I even applied to the school. And that lesson actually is a lesson I continue to carry forward, becoming a face and a voice as quickly as possible, rather than just a name on a piece of paper, can carry you very far, very far.
Oh, man, you just tapped into something when you said that. I can relate to that story. My senior year, my counselors gave me all these applications, University of Georgia, Georgia Tech, other schools, but not one HBCU.
Exactly.
So I inquired about Morehouse, and the answer or the question that I got in a response to what I asked was, why are you thinking about going there?
Wow, just like that, with that tone. Yeah.
That tone, like, that's not good enough for you. You can do better than Morehouse. Mm-hmm. And so even at this point in my life, I still desire to have a Morehouse degree. And I'm going to get it.
Come on, bro. Come on.
I'm going to get it because that really, it really spoke to me. And I always wondered, and the sad part about it, this was a Black guidance counselor.
I'm not surprised. Unfortunately, I'm not surprised.
And so she had been drinking the juice, soaking up the sauce, that as a Black person, you should be seeking an education in a predominantly white institution, because that's going to be the institution that prepares you. And now I understand later on in life that that was a falsehood. Yeah. That was so untrue. So I'm going to talk about that. Tell me just about that experience. Was it the best choice you ever made? And talk about what it meant to you to be a Morehouse man.
You know, I'm glad you asked that question, as well as what you said before that. I noticed a lot of us at times look at our HBCUs and don't recognize their value. And they say things like, being in that environment doesn't prepare you for the real world.
Yeah.
And from my perspective, I say, what better environment to prepare you for the real world than being surrounded by people who are doing things that everybody tells us we can't.
Yes.
By being in a space of your peers who are seeking excellence. I think going to Morehouse actually gave me better preparation for every situation I've ever had to deal with professionally, and some personally, than I ever would have gotten at a PWI. And the thing is, I've gone to both. My undergrad, my bachelor's degree is from Morehouse College. My PhD is from North Carolina State. And I did work at NC State and Duke. And then I was also a nuclear engineering professor at Georgia Tech. So I've been in an academic capacity. I've been in a student capacity in both HBCUs and PWIs. I'm also an adjunct professor of physics at Morehouse now. So I've seen several faces of that. And if you look at our experiences in the PWIs versus in the HBCUs and the preparation that we get, I don't think there's any comparison. There is great value in being surrounded by us, as opposed to having to find pockets of us in an environment that's not necessarily friendly. That's additional stress. That's additional psychic stress, academic stress, other things that are detrimental sometimes to your career, to your advancement. And also, I mean, Morehouse, you know, we make some good students. We make some great students.
I've heard of a few.
You might have heard of a couple. I've heard like 2, 3, 7. Yeah. You know, we do all right. Yeah.
Somehow Morehouse just keeps coming out and even in social media, pop culture. Oh, he went to Morehouse. He went to Morehouse. Like, they're everywhere. These Morehouse men are everywhere. And I love it. And I think it's just spreading the word. Morehouse is an institution to be feared, because when you come out ready to serve the world. Excellence, achievement, class, brilliance, that Black boy joy. That's what Morehouse gives off. So I love it. And so you are a great example of that. So we talked about undergrad, you go and get the PhD.
Right.
You enter into the field and you become a scientist at the Savannah River site.
Right.
Talk to us a little bit about that work.
You know, I actually got to step back a little bit on that one, because it was not that straightforward. So here's how it went. I was actually finishing up my PhD at NC State, and there was this big career fair. It happens every spring, every fall. And I did what everybody should do at a career fair. I had a list. These are the 13 companies or 15 companies I want to talk to. This is my list. These are the ones I'm going to seek out. I've already researched them. If they do an in-person interview, I can talk about them in detail. Like, you know, I'm ready for these. I had my resumes printed out, because this was back in the day when people actually printed out resumes and handed them to people. I don't know what they do now. But, you know, back in my day, you know, we had paper.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was walking around this career fair, and there was a brother who was in front of a poster, and I wasn't even looking in his direction because I had my list.
Yeah.
And this brother was from Savannah River site, and he just kind of said, hey, you know, what's your major? I said, nuclear physics. He said, oh, okay, we do nuclear here. You ever heard of the Savannah River site? I was like, nah, where is that, Savannah? It's actually not. It's near South Carolina. But, and I was like, nah. He said, well, you know what, you want to leave me a resume? And I looked at my list, and I looked at my resumes, and I counted them. I looked at my list, and I thought, it'd be just my luck. I give this guy a resume and I don't have one for one of these companies I want to talk to. And then I said, you know what? Why not? Why not? And that one decision set me on the path that I'm still on right now in my career.
Wow.
I've actually stayed in field and nuclear in some capacity ever since from PhD to the present day. And I don't know many people who do that at all. And the funny thing is, quick side note, when I got on site, I looked for that brother. Nobody knew who he was, which was crazy to me. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Nobody was like, who are you talking about? It was very odd to me, but I don't get all ghosty conspiracy. Nah, I'm just saying, nobody knew who he was. Nobody knew who I was talking about.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. But an open door or a door.
Absolutely.
Presented itself. Absolutely. You decided to walk through.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow.
And so when I got there for my interview, I guess, I don't know, maybe a couple of months later, I did something in an interview that I still advise people to do now. And that is be very clear about your intentions. Yeah. The guy who was interviewing me, the hiring manager, after the standard presentation and all that, I had to do a 30-minute talk because it was, a PhD position. And after doing my talk and having a few questions, he asked about my career goals. And I told him, first day of the interview, it is not my desire to be an individual contributor for too long. I have my eye towards management and leadership. And I was very clear and direct on that. And within 2.5 years, I was in my first management position after being a scientist, for only a couple of years.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was as significant as it was until other people started to tell me that a lot of people worked 5-10 years before they got to that point. So it is important to be clear about your intentions. And also it's important sometimes to take a chance.
Yeah. I mean, this story lets me know that you're a risk taker. You've taken a lot of chances in life, but they've benefited you. So that's a positive.
Absolutely.
And I definitely agree with, making your intentions known when you walk in the door, even letting people know what you're worth. Absolutely. When they say, here's a suggested pay, if you feel like your value is way more than that, throw out a number that you feel like is respected or representative of you. Absolutely. If they can't meet you, maybe that may not be the environment for you, right?
Absolutely.
So,
indeed.
So let's talk about this nuclear.
Yes, sir.
This nuclear work that you do here, brother.
Absolutely.
That's a scary word. When people think nuclear, they think explosive, they think not life, they think of death, they think military, but that's not what you did. So talk about a little bit about what you did with Savannah River site, and then we'll kind of dive a little bit deeper into what you're currently doing now.
Absolutely. Okay. So at Savannah River site, I made weapons. That's not true. I didn't make weapons at Savannah River site. No, actually I went the other way. So after the Cold War ended, the last one, I don't know what's happening now. We may be having another one on the way. But when that particular one ended, there were certain agreements and treaties put in place to get a certain amount of nuclear weapons out of the stockpile. And so part of that involves disassembling things, turning certain metals into oxides, repackaging in certain ways, and then quantifying and characterizing. So at Savannah River site, one of the first jobs I had was to characterize plutonium and uranium that had been in weapons before it got to me. And interesting thing about that, I was put on a project for an instrument that I had no experience with, I'd never even heard of.
Wow.
And that actually, I would say, was pivotal in my career as well, because this instrument was used to characterize uranium in a certain way that hadn't really been done in many years. Won't go into detail on it unless you want to. But at the end of it all, I was a guy right out of grad school who suddenly had responsibilities for a $30 million project. And it was serious. After doing that for about, like I said, like 2.5 years, I got into a management role where I was actually managing. I had a staff, again, these opportunities that came along that just changed the landscape completely. Right out of grad school, a year in, $30 million project, 2.5 years out of grad school, a staff of 28 people, and running a $14 million budgeted facility of, I think it was like 50,000 square feet, analytical laboratory. So no background, no history, nothing in my story prepared me for that. So I treated it like a researcher. I started reading, and I just read a lot. And I didn't just read, management books. I read books on things like instructional design because I had to know how to train and develop people. I started to learn things about chemistry because I'm a physicist. I'm not a chemist. And And then after doing that for about a year, I took over a program that had some domestic and international things that kind of carried me into some other very interesting areas that I still kind of touch on now.
Let me ask you this. So when you walk into these positions as a young man, right out of grad school, like you said,
right,
there has to be some moments of fear, maybe doubt that, can I actually do this? How do you overcome those moments when you may not be as confident in your own abilities, but you're going to just forward and continue to do the work? How do you get to that point?
Ooh, you ain't gonna like this answer. Yeah, Morehouse, man, we build them arrogant. So the thing is, I went into these spaces and I treated it like a research project, because having come out of grad school, it looked the same to me. I was put into a space. I have a thing I know nothing about, and it is my job to become an expert on it. And if I don't become an expert on it, nobody else will.
Yeah.
That was how grad school looked to me. If there was something I didn't know, I had to find it. And if there was no place to find it, I had to figure it out or create it. Again, just like grad school work. So the thing that kept me from being too concerned or afraid was recognizing that the information was out there somewhere.
Yeah.
That there was a resource, whether it was a person or a place or a thing. And treating every job I had like a research project in some way just kind of kept me focused on that.
Yeah, that's a message for somebody.
Right.
That's a message. Even though you may not have the knowledge or the skill, but you can get it.
Absolutely.
But it's about hard work, right? Perseverance,
Absolutely.
persistence, being committed. And even when you're doubtful, you can still have confidence in yourself.
This is true.
And so you knew that you could do the job. You just had to just go out there and get what you needed to be successful. And I know I'm talking to you, brother. I know you were committed to being the smartest person in the room when it came to that project.
Yes. Yes. But, funny thing about getting into professional environments, I'm sure you've seen this as well. A lot of us have seen this. We might come in with a certain thought of being surrounded by people who know so much more than us. And then we get in there and realize, y'all ain't that sharp. Like there's a few stars and then there's a lot of mediocrity. Mm-hmm. And so, rising above is not as difficult as it may seem sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not saying that's the rule, but it's very common in my space.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So back to the science a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Slightly. Share with the viewers and listeners a little bit about why finding that plutonium and uranium, why that's so important in terms of the area and the environment that may exist in, how it can impact the environment itself or those that live in the environment.
Absolutely. So nuclear is very broad. I mean, a lot of times when people hear nuclear, they think, like you said, I call it the big boom.
Yeah.
Of the explosion, right? They think of, this deadly thing. There is a great deal of power generation based in nuclear. And back when I was at Georgia Tech, we used to do this thing where we would show the amount of uranium that it would take to produce an equivalent amount of power to, pounds and pounds of coal. I can't remember the conversion. But so in that space, it can be very, very important from a power generation standpoint. Now, there are some downstream concerns. Mm-hmm. There are some downstream concerns as far as pollution, but those pollution concerns are not nearly as significant at times as the emissions from coal burning or gas burning. So, but that's not a space that I really work in a lot. I'm not really on the power side, but that is a world that I do touch on. Very significant for the average individual. Yeah. In terms of the environment. So what a lot of people don't realize is that the federal government, when they built these big nuclear sites, they made commitments to take them back down to a green field at some point. And so a lot of what I do from an environmental standpoint involves making sure the people who are doing that are actually doing that well and correctly. And I'll actually be going somewhere next week to do just that. A place that formerly did uranium enrichment, and now they're in the process of tearing down, shutting down, and bringing everything down to the ground. And it's not just nuclear; it's EPA, it's environmental testing. They're testing grass and deer and fish and everything in the area to make sure that things are not getting out. There are some significant implications. There are some dangers associated with it. There are a lot of benefits. The best thing we can do now in my space is make sure that we understand what we have well. The stuff's already here. It's already been made. It's already been packaged and produced and turned into stuff. We can't forget about it. And there's a big knowledge gap right now that's widening because a lot of the people who did these things are retiring. So it's actually a good time to start looking towards getting into nuclear to fill those gaps.
There we go.
Yeah.
So opportunities are available for all the young people watching. You're kind of like indecisive what you want to do, but you are interested in science and you have a knack for maybe nuclear. This young man's letting you know this is the time to get in. This is the time to get in. So you work at the Savannah River site for a while in the field, and then you make a shift.
I did.
And talk about what that shift was.
It was a big shift, actually. So, and it's funny how it happened. So I was in South Carolina, just doing my thing. I had some nice career jumps. My salary had gone up probably $40,000 in, I don't know, a year and a half time, which is crazy in the average workplace. And, I was firing on all cylinders. And then there was a professor from Georgia Tech who came to do a presentation on some detection work he was doing, some nuclear detection. And it sounded interesting. So after he did his talk, I invited him to come and meet with my staff to talk specifically about research opportunities. And so we were kind of talking about some different things. I had a couple of grants that were coming through my organization that I was looking to collaborate with someone on. And we started working, and we were just working, doing our thing. Let's get this collaboration going, Savannah River site, Georgia Tech. And then one day, it was a Friday, I was at the gym. I worked a 4-10 schedule, so I was off every Friday. And I was at the gym. I get a call. Hey, man, sorry, I haven't done a lot on this proposal. I've been working on trying to find someone for this new position. And actually, now that I think about it, you'd be great for it if you wanted. It was like a nationwide search. The committee was about to make a decision. And he said, the committee has to make a decision by next week, but if you want, I can pass your resume on, and I'm sure they, would consider you. And I said, man, I'm trying to get this proposal done. Like, I'm doing okay. Your committee's about to make a decision next week. There is no way they've searched for 6 months and they're going to stop and listen to a guy who just walked in the door. A week later, I was in Atlanta for an interview. And, maybe a week or so after that, I was getting an offer. And then in May of that year, which was 2013, May of 2013, I was on my way back here.
Wow.
And I became a nuclear engineering professor at Georgia Tech.
Another door.
The door.
And the beauty of it is, and I always tell people, when opportunities are for you, the only thing you have to do is just say yes.
Indeed.
It's yours. And so he's asking almost as a conduit for where your life is going to take you anyway. All you got to do is just say yes. Absolutely. And here you are thinking, there's no way in the world, you guys have been searching 6 months. They're not going to stop this process and look at this new candidate.
And there I went.
There you went. Yeah, so you're back in Atlanta, Georgia Tech, new position.
Right.
And now how are you feeling? Because now this is a pivot for you a little bit.
It was a big pivot. I am feeling immediately like a big fish in a bowl that is way too small.
Yeah.
I had no idea. And it's funny because these research-one institutions, they at times feel like they are the biggest thing on earth. And they don't realize how big the earth is. And so coming from where I had come from, it sounded good. It was nice. It was more money and, it was different opportunities, but it was very stifling.
Yeah.
I was there for a couple of years. I probably knew 3 months in, it was not for me. But in the process, funny thing, they had a program at Georgia Tech called the Capstone Program. And the Capstone Program was for seniors to kind of do a project. They formed small teams and they would this is engineering students and mechanical engineering, even though they expanded it out to others. And they could work on a project that they developed, or the university partnered with companies.
Right.
And this was huge. I mean, companies, they had like this giant fair at the end that took up the entire basketball arena for people presenting on the results of these projects. And so I actually, through a friend of mine who called me up one day and said, hey, we got this thing I'm working on, we could use some technical advisement. I said, well, I can do that. And what if I get 20 students working on the project for you? And they said yes. So they invested about $30,000. I think it was $32,000, $8K per team. Mm-hmm. They invested $32K. We got 4 teams going. And then toward the end of my time at Georgia Tech, I pulled the guy aside who was my point of contact. And I said, hey, I'm going to be leaving this place soon. I'd already started making some contacts towards other things. And I said, I wanted to make sure that we cement your relationship with Georgia Tech so you all can keep doing what you're doing, because we did something great here. We had 4 teams. We did some semi-autonomous drone development, some remotely deployed nuclear detection system development. We did some great things, and y'all should keep that going. And this guy said to me, I'll never forget this. He said, from the day we met you, we were trying to figure out how to get you away from Georgia Tech. Can we contract with you directly? And that was my first B2B relationship with my company. It was my company and that company. So I left Georgia Tech. I think it was, June 30th. And July 1, I signed an agreement with them. Actually, you know what's funny? I actually signed the agreement with them on July 1st. And then they asked me, you've already been talking to us a little bit. Can we pay you for a little bit of June and we'll just prorate it based on your rate? I said, you're asking me if you can pay me. Okay, if you insist. And so, I had that relationship with that company for about 4 years, wow, as well as 2 other companies that I got contracts with right around the same time. And that was my foray into consulting.
And, this is interesting because I'm a consultant as well.
Right.
In a different space, of course. But one of the things people always ask me, well, how did you get into consulting? Mm-hmm. And your story is like mine. I didn't seek out to be a consultant, right? Mm-hmm. I was just doing what I would call good work.
Right, exactly.
I was making sure I was good at what I did. I knew my stuff.
Exactly.
And somebody knocked on your door and said, hey, would you mind coming helping us with this? And we'll pay you.
Exactly.
And it's like, I never thought that was a thing, but why not?
Exactly.
So how do you like being a consultant? There's a lot of flexibility, but I think people miss out. There's a lot of accountability as well, because this is your name on these projects now.
Brother, I talked to my mom about this not that long ago. And it's funny, she said to me, when you talk about work, you don't talk about it like anyone else I know. Like, I don't talk about it in terms of, I'm going to the job, I'm going into the office, I'm driving. I talk about things in terms of, there's this opportunity. I'm going to meet with this company to see if we can do a teaming agreement, or, there's this particular project that I'm working on some things, and we're going to do a SWOT analysis to see if we can get them interested. Like, I'm in that space.
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, I have not worked a standard 9 to 5 since 2015.
Yeah.
If I'm not at a client site, I'm at home in my office. I'm sitting here with my plants in my sunroom with my windows all around. And, I can't say I make my own schedule always, because there are meetings and things like that. And when I'm on a client site, I'm on their schedule.
Yeah.
But when I'm not, for the most part, I'm on mine. And I have not looked back since. I may go into an office again in a standard 9 to 5 one day, but I cannot picture it. It does not feel right. It does not feel right at all.
Yeah.
And then also,
agree.
Indeed. And financially, so my first year being a consultant, I pretty much doubled my, I stopped calling it salary. I just started calling it revenue. I pretty much doubled my revenue, and I worked probably 75% as much. So I worked smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
So I love it.
There's a lane. So this is to everybody out there that wants to potentially go into consulting. You need to have a name behind you, right? You have to have some credibility behind you. You just can't walk into the lane of consulting. Put in the work, put in the time, create a name for yourself and credibility, and it will come. Trust me, somebody will reach out to you because they've heard of you from somewhere, or they've worked with you in some capacity, and they want to know, how can I continue this relationship on a contractual basis?
Absolutely.
It's out there. So let's get a little more personal.
All right, talk to me.
So you shared a little bit. So I want you to talk to us about who has had the most impact on you in your personal life, and then who has had the greatest impact on you in your professional life.
So personal life, I definitely cite my mom. I cite her as a huge influence. My family actually had a big birthday party for her a few years ago. and we all made videos, made like a long video discussion or thing about it. And I kind of freestyle it because that's what I do. And in the process, I started to talk about the parts of her story that really were influential to me.
Yeah.
My mother was a paramedic growing up, and then also later a nurse. And so she saved lives. She's delivered babies. She's held the hands of people as they left this earth.
Yeah.
She raised a family. My father died when I was very young. So she was a single mother, raised a family. I saw her get up, prepare meals for us, go to school when she was going to be a nurse, come home briefly, and then go, be on the truck, as she called it, the ambulance, till 11 o'clock at night. I think that she was very influential in teaching me something about hard work, about family, about acts of service as really major ways of showing that you care about someone. Mm. And she showed me something about excellence. She actually went to get her real estate license, not because she wanted to sell houses, but because she wanted to show some of my siblings that it was something that they could do.
Wow.
I mean, she is an amazing woman.
Yeah.
I'll be hanging out with her tomorrow. So good times.
Yeah. Yeah. You make me want to call my mom up right now. Like, Mom,
do it, brother. Do it, man.
Listen, I think I may make that trip down to Columbus tomorrow. Since I told you I wasn't doing anything anyway, I think it'd be a great day to go hang out with Mom.
There you go, man. Do it.
That's awesome.
And as far as professionally, and this is funny because I don't, as a person, I'm not very fond of this guy. Not really fond of this guy at all. Professionally, remember I mentioned that during that interview, my first interview out of grad school, well, my interview with Savannah River, not my first interview. They asked me what I wanted to do, with my career and all that. And I mentioned that I didn't want to be an individual contributor. He listened. And the first opportunity that came along for me to get into a management role, he put my name at the top of the list.
Wow.
And I would say that first management job, again, I think Warren Buffett has talked about this in terms of his financial success. He said he can tie his financial success to maybe 4 or 5 really good decisions. There are other things that kind of, springboard out of that, some things spiral out, but you can really point out a few specific instances in life that were critical. And I would say that was one of them. I would say actually getting into that first role, having the opportunity to flex, to spread my wings, to get outside of my comfort zone, to learn how to do things outside of just being in a scientific environment, to expand on my tool set, to get comfortable getting in front of people.
Yeah.
That was a critical thing. And that was hugely influential in my life. Still not that fond of the guy, but the outcomes are great. So hugely impactful.
Because who's to say, sometimes people do things to see what we're made of, right? You're a young guy, you're coming in, he may have thinking, he's flexing his muscles. He thinks he's this. Let's see what he can do.
Indeed. Whatever his motivation was, he wasn't ready.
You said challenge that. Challenge that.
Challenge accepting, exactly. May the odds be ever in your favor.
Yeah. Awesome. What's one thing you wish you would have known earlier in your career?
So many. So that consulting thing you mentioned, as far as building a name or a brand for yourself.
Yeah.
I don't think I understood how early you can jump out there. I didn't realize that once I started doing it, I was thinking to myself, I should have done this years ago. Like I can't say many years ago, but I probably could have gotten started a year or so earlier, because there is a point in your career where you're kind of the person who knows nothing. You know all your school stuff, but you know nothing about, the job. And then you get to the point where you kind of know what you're doing and people can give you things. They can trust you as someone they can give work to. And then you know more and they trust you as someone that they can actually ask about things. They can actually get guidance or advice on. And then at some point you kind of cross over into that space where you can either continue getting paid to do that thing for that particular company, or become a mercenary, like I like to call it sometimes, and figure out who else is going to pay you to do this. That transition point can happen a lot sooner than many of us realize. And so I think I left some money on the table, some experience on the table by not doing that. Also, this pandemic, I know this is later in career, not early, taught me a lot about resilience.
Yeah.
So my business depends a lot on being able to get on a plane. And that to me seemed pretty safe. I mean, I had some diversification as far as, clients and all that. Didn't think that it really mattered if anything else went wrong, because as long as I can get on a plane, I'm fine.
Right.
Until it gets difficult to get on a plane. And then what do you do? So establishing alternate pathways for resilience early probably would have been very beneficial in this present landscape.
Yeah. We never thought this was going to happen, right? Who knew a COVID would land in our laps?
Exactly. Who knew?
Yeah. And not for a couple of weeks.
Nope.
Months. And
year 2 now, brother.
Yeah.
Year 2.
Yeah. So we all had
happy anniversary. Yeah.
No, we don't really want to celebrate that, but it is what it is, right?
Yeah, man.
What would you consider to be your biggest challenge, or what was your biggest challenge, and what did you learn from it?
I'm gonna stay with the professional theme here. I think the biggest challenge for me was coming to a point of understanding that I had what I needed. I think that it's very easy sometimes to look at difficulties that come in front of you and get unnerved, to get uncomfortable, and to even get frozen a bit. Yeah. On the other side, it's also very easy to get too comfortable. I mean, when the money seems to grow on trees, all you got to do is go outside and pick a little bit.
Yeah.
You don't think about those trees dying sometimes. So those alternately are kind of challenges, to not get too comfortable when things are good, to not get too uncomfortable when things are bad. I mean, that's
what was it that signaled that where you were was enough?
I'm sorry, say that again.
So what was that moment, that point when you realized that where you were, you had it, you had enough, you knew enough, you were ready, and you didn't need to be on this whole search of seeking? Was there one thing in particular that just kind of like an awakening moment for you?
I think, and I can't say specifically when it happened. But I think it is when I started to hear my name or hear of my work from people I didn't know.
Yeah.
When I started to have people contact me saying, can we get you on this project?
Yeah. When
it just kind of became clear that I had built enough of a body of work, or reputation, whatever term we want to use, that sometimes the phone would just ring. I wouldn't have to pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Or the emails would just show up. That literally just happened to me about 3 weeks ago. I got contacted by 3 different companies going after the same contract because they wanted me as key personnel on it. I mean, that's which is a term that you'll find in federal contracting space, but that's that's significant. It is significant to recognize or to learn that people are seeking you out, not because they want to just hire you, but because they recognize that being associated with you increases their likelihood of success. That's major.
That's major, brother. That's major. And I hear you saying it, but this is profound for me because, like you said, this is a big project. 3 big companies who want to get this bid on this project, but every one of those companies feel like they can't do the project without you.
I don't know if they can't, but they think it will certainly help if I was there.
I'm saying it for you. They can't do it without you.
All right, I'll receive that.
That's powerful. That's powerful. Yeah. So yeah, that would definitely be a moment where you realize, I think I'm good enough. And I think when we're working, when you're in it, you don't realize all the things you've done in the past, right? Like until you really reflect, you're like, wow, I did do all of that. And for you, it's just, I'm just working. Let's keep going down.
Yes,
What's next? What do you see yourself going 5 years from now? How do you see yourself growing? What do you want for yourself?
You know, it's it's interesting. I kind of want to figure out how to stop. So, you know, it's it gets tiring out there, brother. So, yeah, the next steps for me involve development and transitioning some things out of my direct responsibility into the hands of others. I mean, not that I'm going to transition all the money, all the revenue, just transition some responsibilities away. I mean, that should always be the goal, I think, you know, at some point to phase yourself out of direct responsibility. And if you're in a consulting space, to be able to still lend your expertise to things if you need to, but also to be able to provide people with that same expertise. And then you can kind of be in the back room a bit. That's actually part of what I look at with some of my adjunct professor work. I mean, I actually developed a course called Applied Statistics for Nuclear Applications, in part because of some of those gaps I mentioned in the nuclear industry. Nobody's training people to do some of the things that we're doing in that class.
Yeah.
But also the people who do that for real in real life, they are very, very highly sought after.
Wow.
So, you know, there's opportunities out there that I want to see if I can capitalize on without necessarily being the one to physically capitalize on them. And so that's what I mean when I say I want to stop. I've been on a lot of planes. I've gotten a lot of frequent flyer miles and a lot of Marriott reward points. Yeah, slow down a little bit.
I love it. Paying it forward, giving those younger potentials an opportunity to do work, do the real work.
Absolutely.
So last question, talk to us a little bit about your affiliation with BDN. We love having members like yourself, brilliant, really out there making a difference and creating opportunities. So talk about your relationship with BDN. What do you look for in this relationship? Where do you see it going?
Oh, absolutely. So I look at BDN in a similar way to how I described HBCUs, to be in a space surrounded by people doing things that, you know, we defy stereotypes, right? Yeah. I mean, you don't, Dr. Me, Dr. You doesn't look like what they think when they think, you know, Dr. somebody. And so from a networking standpoint, it is a fantastic space in terms of being able to connect students with professionals.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the opportunity to show us what we do. And there's an old saying, they will be what they see. I always add a little bit to that. And I say, so we got to make sure we control or change what they're seeing, because there's a lot of negativity out there. So I love the opportunity that BDN provides to have individuals who can show some of that.
Yeah.
And also I want to contribute. I mean, I feel like I know a few things. So I can add a little bit of my my knowledge base here as well.
Yeah.
And I'm just getting started with you all, with us all, I should say.
Well, we're excited. We're excited to have you as a member. We're excited to continue to learn from you, to have you share with us what you do in the world. And if we can be a part of what you're doing, you know that we are here to support you in any way that we can.
Absolutely. And also one last thing, I also would love to be able to call upon you all for resources. If I know of a position or a consulting opportunity that needs somebody who does blank, whatever that blank is, I love to be able to call us first.
Awesome.
So let's keep doing that.
Thank you. Thank you, brother. Thank you so much for joining me today. Great conversation. I've been well informed about you as a person and about the work that you do. I'm excited to learn more about you. And I also want our guests and our listeners to learn more about you. So where can they go to learn more about the work that you're doing?
Oh, good deal. So my company is BDM Consulting. And so my website is bdmconsultingservices.com. So that's Bravo David Mike, BDM Consulting Services. And then also I mentioned at the very beginning that I kind of help people figure out what they want to do with the rest of their lives. So I have some nonprofit work through Expect Next. That's EXPECT NEXT. Look us up online as well. And we handle helping young people, whether they are in high school, going to college, college going to grad school going to real life, or maybe college going to real life. Help people understand what they can do and maybe the best ways to do it. Man. So BDM Consulting Services and Expect Next.
I love that. Expect Next. I love it.
Sure.
You guys, listen, go check him out. Go look on his websites, follow him, and see what he's doing. He's doing some great work. And while you're over there checking him out and following him, be sure to stay connected with the Black Doctoral Network as well on all of our social media channels. We want to thank you for joining us today for this wonderful conversation with Dr. DuBose. And make sure that you join us next time for another great interview. But for now, be sure to like, share, subscribe, and make sure you go and tell somebody about BDN. We would love to have you join our team, be a member, and also share our wonderful experiences with others that you know. Until then, be safe, be blessed. We'll see you next time.